It was New Year's Eve, the cusp of a new year, 2002, a time for hope, for celebration, for new beginnings. But for one family in Philadelphia, the chime of midnight would forever mark the beginning of an agonizing mystery, a void that swallowed their daughter whole. This isn't just a story about a missing person, it's a chilling glimpse into the fragile line between everyday life and the unfathomable, a historical, real-life mystery that has baffled investigators and haunted a community for over 2 decades. What truly happened to Cindy Song, the college student who vanished into the cold December night just steps from her front door? Prepare to delve into the untold history of a case where every lead goes cold and every answer remains just out of reach. The year 2001 was drawing to a close, a year still reeling from the shockwaves of 9/11. But for many, New Year's Eve was a chance to look forward, to embrace the future. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love, preparations were underway for festive celebrations. Amidst the joyous anticipation was Cindy Song, a 22-year-old Korean-American college student at the University of Pennsylvania. Cindy was, by all accounts, a remarkably grounded young woman. Friends and family consistently described her as responsible, calm, and cautious, qualities that made her sudden disappearance even more perplexing and out of character. She wasn't one to take risks, to disappear without a word, or to court danger. This inherent carefulness would become a tragic irony in the unfolding events. On December 31st, 2001, Cindy attended a New Year's Eve party with friends. The atmosphere was typical for the occasion. Music pulsed, conversations flowed, and the promise of midnight champagne loomed. Cindy was enjoying herself, but as the night wore on and the clock ticked closer to midnight, she began to feel unwell. It wasn't anything serious, just a general feeling of sickness, enough to prompt her to make the sensible decision to head home early. This decision, made with characteristic responsibility, would inadvertently set the stage for one of Pennsylvania's most enduring cold cases. Around 11:45 p.m., a mere 15 minutes before the world would erupt in cheers and confetti, Cindy bid her friends farewell and left the party. The Philadelphia night was cold, crisp with the promise of winter, but Cindy was bundled in a black jacket, her only visible possession as she walked. Security cameras captured her solitary journey. The footage, later scrutinized by investigators in excruciating detail, showed her walking alone, purposefully heading toward her apartment building. She was just steps from home, within sight of the sanctuary of her own space. The cameras recorded her movements, a silent, grainy testament to her presence at that moment. She was there, alive, within meters of safety. Yet she never made it inside. The apartment building, a commonplace structure in a bustling city, would become the impenetrable veil behind which Cindy Song vanished forever. The dawn of January 1st, 2002 brought with it the usual hopes and resolutions of a new year. But for Cindy's friends, it brought an unsettling silence. Calls to her phone went unanswered. This was immediately alarming. Cindy was not one to ignore her friends or to be out of touch. Her responsible nature meant she was always accessible, always communicative. Growing increasingly concerned, her friends decided to check on her at her apartment. What they found only deepened their dread. The apartment door was locked. The lights were off. There were absolutely no signs that Cindy had ever returned home. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist between the moment the security camera captured her near her building and the moment her friends arrived at her door. The police were notified, and what began as a missing persons report quickly escalated into a full-scale investigation. The first crucial step was to review the surveillance footage. Detectives pored over hours of tape, meticulously tracking Cindy's movements. The footage confirmed her leaving the party and walking toward her building. But then the trail abruptly ended. Cindy simply disappeared between 2 cameras. There was no struggle visible on the tapes, no frantic movements, no signs of an altercation. There were no screams reported by neighbors, no commotion to suggest foul play. Just a gaping void, a silent space where a person had been and then was not. It was a disappearance so clean, so absolute, that it defied logic and immediate explanation. How could someone vanish without a trace in a relatively populated urban area within minutes of midnight on one of the busiest nights of the year? Days turned into a week, then weeks into months without any concrete leads. The initial frantic search efforts, involving law enforcement, volunteers, and the distressed community, yielded nothing. The silence surrounding Cindy's disappearance was deafening. Then, approximately 2 weeks after she vanished, investigators made a chilling discovery. In a nearby alley, a scrap of Cindy's clothing was found. It was a small piece, seemingly insignificant in its size, yet profoundly significant in its implications. This was the first, and for a long time, only tangible clue related to her disappearance. Hope surged briefly, only to be dashed by the subsequent forensic analysis. There was no blood on the scrap of clothing, no DNA evidence that could point to an attacker, no fibers from another person's clothes, nothing that could be definitively linked to a struggle or a perpetrator. The alley itself offered no further insights, no witnesses came forward, and the street remained stubbornly silent. The clue, rather than providing answers, only deepened the mystery, confirming that something terrible had indeed happened to Cindy, but offering no path to understanding what or who was responsible. As the months stretched into years, the case of Cindy Song became one of Philadelphia's most perplexing cold cases. Investigators tirelessly pursued every possible avenue. Multiple suspects were identified and questioned, their alibis scrutinized, their backgrounds delved into. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers who seemed to have a tenuous connection to the case were brought in for interviews. Each lead, each potential suspect was examined with hope and diligence, but time and again they led to dead ends. Without a body, without a crime scene, without witnesses, and crucially, without any specific DNA evidence pointing to an individual, the case remained frustratingly stagnant. The lack of answers took a profound toll on Cindy's family. The agony of not knowing, of having no closure, is a unique form of torment. Every passing holiday, every birthday, every New Year's Eve served as a painful reminder of the daughter, sister, and friend who was no longer there. They lived in a perpetual state of limbo, caught between hope and despair, constantly wondering, constantly searching, even as the official investigation slowed and resources shifted to newer, more active cases. The initial intensity of the media coverage also faded, replaced by the relentless cycle of new headlines, new tragedies. But for Cindy's family and a dedicated few investigators, the case never truly went cold. It simply moved into the realm of enduring mysteries, periodically revisited with renewed hope each time a new technique emerged or a fresh pair of eyes reviewed the files. Over the 2 decades since Cindy vanished, forensic technology has advanced significantly. DNA analysis, once a budding science, has become incredibly sophisticated. Digital forensics, virtually non-existent in its current form in 2001, now offers new avenues for investigation. Yet despite these advancements, the case of Cindy Song remains unsolved. The initial lack of evidence, combined with the passage of time, has created an almost insurmountable barrier to uncovering the truth. The urban environment that seemed so commonplace that New Year's Eve has now become a silent accomplice to the crime, its myriad of streets and buildings holding on to secrets that refuse to yield. The perplexing nature of Cindy's disappearance has fueled various theories over the years. Was it a random act of violence? Was she targeted? Did she encounter someone she knew? The fact that she was so close to home and that her disappearance occurred in such a confined temporal and spatial window suggests a high degree of precision or opportunism on the part of the perpetrator. The absence of a struggle or screams further complicates matters, hinting at a scenario where she may have been abducted quickly, perhaps lured into a vehicle, or even rendered unconscious before she could react. The discovery of her clothing scrap, while offering a tangible link, ultimately provided no definitive answers as to the nature of the crime or the identity of the culprit. It remains a stark, silent reminder of her last known moments, a thread of evidence that hangs frustratingly unconnected to the rest of the narrative. More than 20 years later, Cindy Song has never been found. Her name, once synonymous with a vibrant future, is now a symbol of an enduring question mark in American true crime history. There are no answers, no closure for her family, only the agonizing reality of a life abruptly cut short and a mystery that continues to haunt those who knew her and those who have followed her case. The New Year's Eve of 2001, a night meant for celebration and new beginnings, remains frozen in time for the Song family, forever marked by silence and the echo of a question that never fades. The case of Cindy Song serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life, the hidden dangers that can lurk even in the most familiar settings, and the relentless, heartbreaking pursuit of justice that sometimes, despite all efforts, remains elusive. Her story is a testament to the fact that some celebrations truly do end in questions that never fade, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered prayers and an enduring plea for the truth.